They say HOAs exist to protect communities. But what happens when an HOA decides you are the problem and rewrites the rules just to break you? This started with a letter. No warning, no conversation, just a white envelope taped to my front door like a threat. Inside were the words that changed everything. You are in violation. No explanation, no evidence, just a deadline and a fine. I'd lived in this house for 5 years, never missed a payment, never caused trouble. But the moment I stopped nodding and smiling at HOA meetings, the moment I questioned where the money was going, I became a target. First, I thought it was a mistake. I emailed the board president. No reply. I called the management company, straight to voicemail. Then the fines started stacking up. First, it was $50, then $150. Then they added administrative fees. For what? Apparently, my trash cans were visible from the street, even though every other house on my block had theirs out too. I took pictures, time-stamped, clear as day. I sent proof. Their response? The board has determined the violation stands. That's when I realized this wasn't about trash cans. This was about control. At the next HOA meeting, I stood up and asked a simple question. Why am I the only one being fined? The room went quiet. The president, a woman who smiled like she was always winning, leaned into the mic and said, "If you don't like how we do things, maybe this community isn't for you." That wasn't a suggestion. That was a warning. A week later, they escalated. A letter arrived by certified mail. Notice of lien. They were threatening my home over trash cans. I called a lawyer. He laughed. Not because it was funny, but because he'd seen this before. HOAs don't like being questioned, he said. And once they pick you, they don't stop. But neither do I. So I started digging. I requested HOA financial records. By law, they had to provide them. They delayed. They stalled. They claimed files were missing. That's when the retaliation went nuclear. They sent a security patrol to my house, took photos, filed reports. Then one afternoon, I came home to find a bright orange notice slapped on my garage. Final warning. That was the moment something snapped. Because buried in that paperwork, I found something they never expected me to notice. And once I saw it, there was no going back. The financial records finally arrived in a shared PDF. Hundreds of pages, boring numbers, budgets, invoices. But one line item kept repeating. Consulting fees, thousands of dollars, every month, paid to a company with a familiar last name. The HOA president's last name. Her husband. I cross-checked business registrations. Same address. Same bank routing number. This wasn't a mistake. This was self-dealing. And it was illegal. I printed everything. Highlighted it. Then I sent one calm, professional email to the entire board. Before this escalates further, I recommend reviewing the attached documents. Silence. For 3 days. Then suddenly, the fines were paused. The lien notice was under review. Too late, because I had already forwarded everything to a real estate attorney and the state HOA oversight office. That's when the tone changed. The president called me directly for the first time ever. Her voice was sweet, nervous. She said, "I think we got off on the wrong foot." I said nothing. She offered to resolve everything internally. I declined. 2 weeks later, the board resigned. All of them. An emergency meeting was held. Homeowners packed the room. When the investigation results were read out loud, gasps filled the room. Money misused. Selective enforcement. Retaliation. The same people who ignored me now wouldn't even look me in the eye. The lien was removed. All fines refunded. In writing. And the new board? They changed the rules. Transparency. Recorded meetings. Open financials. As for me, I still live in the same house. Same trash cans. Same driveway. But now, every time I walk past the HOA office, I remember one thing. They tried to ruin my life over a rule. Instead, I exposed everything they were hiding. If you're being bullied by an HOA, Document everything, because sometimes the smallest rule hides the biggest secret. If you're still watching right now, it means this story hit something personal, because this wasn't just about trash cans. It wasn't about fines, and it definitely wasn't about rules. This was about power, about what happens when a small group of people are given authority, and no one ever checks them. HOAs like to call themselves protectors of property values. But stories like this prove something far more uncomfortable. When power goes unquestioned, it doesn't protect communities, controls them. What happened to me can happen to anyone. It starts quietly. A letter, a warning, a fine that feels easier to pay than to fight. Most people comply, not because they're guilty, but because they're tired. And that's exactly what HOAs count on. They count on fear. They count on confusion. They count on you believing they're untouchable. But here's the truth they never want homeowners to realize. HOAs are not above the law. They are not immune to scrutiny. And they absolutely do not like it when someone starts asking the wrong questions. This story didn't end the way it did because I was special. It ended this way because I documented everything. Every letter, every fine, every email they ignored. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lose control. I didn't break a single rule. I simply paid attention. And that's what exposed them. Because corruption doesn't hide in chaos. It hides in paperwork, in vague line items, in delayed responses, in phrases like, "The board has decided." The moment I stopped reacting emotionally and started responding strategically, the balance of power shifted. And suddenly, the people who once ignored me couldn't stop calling. That's the part of the story they don't teach you. They don't tell you that intimidation only works when you don't look back. They don't tell you that bullies panic when you stop playing defense and start gathering evidence. And they definitely don't tell you how fast things unravel when sunlight hits the truth. What makes this story important isn't that an HOA board resigned. It's that they never expected resistance. They never expected someone to read the documents, to request the records, to connect the dots. They assumed compliance, and that assumption cost them everything. If you live under an HOA, this story is your warning and your shield, because the goal isn't to fight. The goal is to protect yourself before things escalate. Know your governing documents. Know your state laws. Know that final warning doesn't always mean final. Most importantly, know this: you are allowed to ask questions. You are allowed to request records. You are allowed to defend your home. And if someone in power tells you otherwise, that's usually the first sign. They're afraid of what you'll find. This video isn't just a story. It's a lesson. A reminder that silence is convenient for those abusing authority, and that compliance is often mistaken for consent. But when one person refuses to be intimidated, the entire system starts to shake. That's why stories like this matter, because somewhere right now, someone is opening a letter that looks just like mine did, and they're wondering if fighting back is worth it. Let this be your answer. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to be aggressive. You don't need to break the rules. You just need to pay attention and refuse to be scared into silence. If the story made you angry, that's not an accident. Anger means awareness, and awareness is where change begins. So if you've ever dealt with an HOA nightmare, if you've ever felt powerless in your own home, or if you've ever watched authority cross the line and wondered if anyone could stop it, you're not alone. And these stories will keep being told. Because every time one HOA gets exposed, another homeowner realizes they don't have to be afraid. And that's how control loses its grip. If you found value in this story, take a moment to support the channel. Subscribe for more real stories, where ordinary people stand up to systems that never expected resistance. Drop a comment if you face something similar. Your experience might help someone else feel less alone. And remember this: your home is not just a building. It's your ground. And no one gets to take that from you quietly. This story ended because they messed with the wrong homeowner. The next one might start with you. And when it does, You'll know exactly what to do.